Should we make a video? Yeah. I've been living with multiple sclerosis for over 17 years. I've been living well with multiple sclerosis for over 17 years. In many ways, my health is better now than before. I wanted to share a little bit about my story and the changes that I've made over the years that have helped me to improve my health. On my channel, I share my thoughts on living well with MS and chronic illness. This does not mean that my thoughts are necessarily going to agree with your thoughts, and it definitely doesn't mean that my thoughts are medical advice. It just means that I'm thoughtful. In 2006, I had my first discernible relapse. It was pretty profound. It resulted in significant foot drop on the right, and I ended up in the hospital. And I will put a link above and in the description below to my full diagnosis story and how that went. But today I wanted to talk about the process I went through and the changes that I've made. They thought it was MS. They also thought it might have been a tumor. It was in my neck. And they gave me high doses of steroids, which did help some. And they sent me home and with instructions to follow up with my new neurologist. And I did that for about 2 years. I got MRIs and had appointments every 6 months for 2 years. But it really got my attention. Like many of us, when we have a significant health event, we kind of sit up and go, oh, I'm not healthy. And I thought I was. I thought I was living pretty healthy and doing all the right things to stay healthy. But when I really looked at it, maybe not so much. I was eating a lot of vegetarian food because my husband was vegetarian. But when I really took a close look, maybe not so healthy. One of the things that I did when I got home was to look for information on multiple sclerosis. I know many people say, don't research it. It's too scary. I'm not one of those people. I think information is power. So go ahead and look for information. Don't look for the worst outcomes and don't look for the terrible stories, but look for information that can help. And one of the things that I came across that was helpful for me was the research of Dr. Roy Swank. His patients were doing well for decades. And this was decades ago. And I will put a link below to his research and how his patients were doing. And one of the things that they did was to eat a low-fat, low-saturated fat diet. And they ate a lot of whole, real foods. So this was my first indicator that maybe I could improve my diet. So I took a look at what I was eating, and I was eating a lot of standard American diet food, a lot of processed foods, a lot of packaged foods, full of ingredients that I didn't know what they were. There were preservatives and additives and colors and flavor enhancers, a lot of high fructose this and saturated that and trans stuff. And I was also eating a lot of white food, white rice, white pasta, white bread, rolls, flour, sugar. And these foods are stripped of their nutrition and they're really inflammatory, it turns out. So I started to cut back on those. I cut out meat. I became vegetarian and I started to try and eat more whole, real food. I also took a look at my exercise. I really wanted to get function in my right leg back to 100%. So I started doing yoga and I went to a local yoga studio to help with my balance and my strength. And it really helped. It took several months. It took a long time, but now you would never know that I had foot drop on the right. I would say it got 98% better. And sometimes I might notice it if I'm fatigued or I haven't been sleeping or maybe I have a cold or an illness. But for the most part, it's better. And I also started taking some meditation classes at the yoga studio, which helped reduce my stress and helped with my happiness. So all of these things help. And after 2 years of seeing the neurologist and getting MRIs, they didn't see any new indication of disease activity. So they said, no, we're not going to diagnose you with MS. Go ahead, live your life. Call us if you have any other symptoms. That sounds good. So I went happily about my life. Did any of you make changes when you were first diagnosed? Did you experience any of this? Did you go, oh, I really need to take care of myself? Let me know in the comments below. But then in 2016, I started to have more symptoms. They were a little bit more subtle. I had some sensation loss on the left, and spasms, and confog, and fatigue, and some pain when I exercised. So I started going back to the doctors. And in 2017, I was diagnosed. It was not unexpected because they thought it was MS back in 2006. But even though it wasn't unexpected, it was still devastating to get the diagnosis of a progressive, degenerative, incurable disease is a hard pill to swallow. But again, I took another hard look at my diet and my lifestyle. Getting diagnosed with MS or any other chronic illness is not our fault. Let me say that again for the people in the back. Getting diagnosed with MS or chronic illness is not our fault. But I do believe it is our responsibility to look after our health and look after our well-being. So when I got diagnosed, I started taking a hard look at my diet and lifestyle again. And I started collecting information. You can see my bookshelf has a lot of information, some of the information I was reading and collecting along the way. And I have an Amazon store where I have all my books, and I'll leave a link to that below if you would like to check them out. Did you read any books? Did you collect information? Do you have some that you loved? Share them in the comments below. I love to hear from my viewers. I also started to educate myself. I took a course at eCornell on plant-based nutrition, and my husband and I went out to the Cleveland Clinic and we took a program on preventing and reversing disease with diet. And I also took the Dr. Will Bolshewitz's gut microbiome online course. It's fascinating, the connection between our guts and our brain. They call our guts the second brain. So after I was diagnosed, I got onto a disease-modifying treatment. I started taking a DMT, but I also started making more changes and improving my health more and more. And I now do 5 things in addition to my DMT. I've changed my diet even more. There's tons of research showing that what we eat can help with managing our MS symptoms. And I'll put some links to research below so you can check it out and some previous videos that I've done on diet. I now eat a whole food, plant-based diet. I exercise. One of my favorite pieces of research states that exercise is the single most non-pharmacological symptomatic treatment of multiple sclerosis. It's the second best thing that we can do in addition to our DMTs. So exercise is critically important, and I'll put that research paper below as well. I now walk my dog every day that I can, weather permitting. I do yoga, I go to Zumba, I do some strength training, I do stretching, I do cardio. All of these things are important to keep my body in the best shape that it can be. I've also learned over the years how important sleep is. I have a book on sleep that is fascinating, and it goes deep into the research and how important sleep is for our brain health. When we sleep, our brains clean house and they clean out all the garbage and gunk. And that's super important to our brain health. And it's also where we commit memories at night, that's when we commit them to long-term memory. So this is really important for our cognitive function. So I'm really focused on getting good sleep. I also practice kindness in the forms of compassion and mindfulness, and compassion towards myself and towards others. When we first get diagnosed, it's so difficult, and there can be fear, there can be anger and uncertainty. We can feel all the emotions, especially in the first year or two. And I have found that practicing compassion towards myself and others has been incredibly beneficial to me. I am a member of a lot of online groups that are about multiple sclerosis and a lot of forums. And I read a lot of comments of people who are struggling. They're struggling with their symptoms. They're struggling with their family and their friends and their responses to their multiple sclerosis. And having compassion towards yourself and treating yourself well is so important, but also having compassion to others. I know it's so frustrating that people don't understand when we say, "Oh, so tired, the fatigue," and people go, "Oh, yeah, I get tired too," or I wish I could remember things. Yeah, I forget things all the time too. They're not going to understand. They don't live with what we live. And even other people with MS are not going to understand. All of us have it uniquely. When people talk to us about our symptoms, I genuinely believe that they care and they're compassionate and they want to show some degree of understanding. So I've had a shift in how I respond to people when they don't understand. I now look at it as they care and they want to talk with me about it. They may not understand and they may never understand, but I know that they care about me. And mindfulness. I took an 8-week mindfulness-based stress reduction class shortly after my diagnosis. It was life-changing. Being able to practice mindfulness regularly reduces our stress, helps us to be happier. When we reduce our stress, we reduce our stress hormones and all of the bad things that come with those. We sleep better, we feel better. Mindfulness is so key to living well with MS or chronic illness. The last thing that I do is I take supplements. And I have been looking more into this in more recent years. And I work with my neurologist and a naturopathic doctor on the supplements that I take. I would say the two that are most common with people with MS are vitamin D and B12. And there is a strong link between low levels of vitamin D and developing MS. And a lot of us are vitamin D deficient, especially in modern life. We're inside all the time. We're now out in the sun, and the sun is how we create vitamin D in our bodies. It's a hormone that our body creates. So many people are deficient in vitamin D. And we're actually going to be doing another video soon about vitamin D and how to better absorb it. And the second one is B12. B12 is really critical to brain and nerve health. And many people are B12 deficient, not just vegetarians and vegans, especially with the standard American diet and the modern diet. We raise our cattle differently than we used to. They're on feedlots now. And so even people who eat beef are not getting the levels of vitamin B12 that they used to. So those are two that I highly recommend that you get tested. And then you know how much you need to supplement. I'm on a handful of other supplements, but I work with my naturopathic doctor and I get regular blood work done. And I encourage you to do the same. We can't say, oh, this is a good supplement unless we know what we need to supplement. So check with your doctor and get a naturopathic doctor and work on your supplement. It has been a journey living with MS all these years. And I'm continuing to make adjustments and tweaks to improve my diet and lifestyle to help improve my health and well-being. It's so important that we take exquisite care of ourselves. We live in amazing times. There's over 20 different DMTs to help us slow or stop the progression of MS. And new ones are being worked on all the time. And there's amazing new technology and devices to help us live well when we develop the need or deficiencies or we have disabilities that come along. And there's also great research happening around diet and lifestyle changes that can help us mitigate our symptoms and help us to live well with MS and possibly reduce progression. I remain open to treatment if needed. If my current DMT is not working, I'll change. I'll change to a new one. And I'm also open to changing my diet and lifestyle. New research is coming out all the time on things that we can do to live as well as we can. I invite you to stay curious about the new research. Stay curious about things that you can do to improve your health. Try to make new choices every day to support yourself, to take exquisite care of yourself. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoy content like this, please give it a like, a thumbs up under the video, and subscribe. And don't forget to subscribe to my newsletter where I share more on living well with MS and chronic illness. Until next time, be well.